each promise you made. Let the rest fade away. There's a peace far beyond all understanding. May it ever set my heart at ease. Their anxiety come, I'll remember that peace is a promise you keep. Peace is a promise you keep. You will stay true, even in the chaos. Your word remains true, even when my mind wreaks havoc. I will be still, for I've known all along my Jehovah Shalom. There's a peace far beyond all understanding. May it ever set my heart at ease. What anxiety feels to remember is peace is a promise you keep. Peace is a promise you keep. You are peace to a restless soul. Peace when my thoughts wage war. Peace to the anxious heart. That's who you are. That's who you are. You are peace when my fear takes hold. Peace when I'm feeling cold. Peace when I lose control. That's who you are. That's who you are. I found peace far beyond all understanding. Let it flow when my mind's under siege. All anxiety bows in the presence of Jesus, the keeper of peace. And peace is a promise he keeps. when my mind's under siege. All anxiety bows in the presence. All anxiety bows in the presence. All anxiety bows in the presence of Jesus, the keeper of peace. And peace is a promise he keeps.
Hi friends, this is Pastor Jason, the Youth and Young Adults Pastor at Jericho Ridge Community Church. We welcome you to our online service. Caitlin and the team will lead us in music, and Pastor Brad will give us the message as we continue in our spiritual rhythm series and talk about the importance of rest. Now for me, rest is about being re-energized. Colossians 3:16-17 reminds us on how the love of Christ can re-energize us as we take in teaching, counsel, and encouragement through songs and singing. So Colossians 3:16-17. Let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. Teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom he gives. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father.
Your breath come from heaven. promises are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. Beautiful Savior, you have brought me here. Pulled me from the ashes, you have broken every curse. Blessed Redeemer, you have set this captive free. Lord, I can't help but sing. Faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. All your promises are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. Faithful you are. Faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. All your promises are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Faithful you are. Faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. All your promises are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. So as we enter into this next song, this is a song that's familiar to many of us, and often we can get to know the words of a song so well that we don't really think about it. I just really encourage you to take some time during this song to think about the lyrics that we're singing, especially when we get to the bridge where it says, "Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith would be made stronger in the presence of my Savior." And as you think about that, we have the opportunity to offer our entire selves up to our Father. He doesn't want just pieces, just our faith, just our different aspects of ourselves. And I know for myself, there are things that so often I hold very tight, and that I don't always bring before Him, like my doubts, my questions, my disappointments. And so as we go into this song, think about offering every part of yourself, being led out onto the water with your whole being. And so there's going to be a few spaces and just in between the verses. Take that time to really just think about what that is in your life and what it is to bring yourself holy before our Father. Father God, I thank you that we can bring ourselves before you, that we can call you ours. I can call you mine. I thank you for that close relationship that we can have. And I just pray that as we go into our weeks, as we transition into this next part of our day, I just pray that you go with us and that we feel that closeness. And if we can't feel it, God, that we just have a peace knowing that we are yours. Thank you, Father.
Thank you, music team. God is present, and we also want to extend that connection. So here is our family news. Spring cleaning. On Saturday, March 20th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., join friends from JRCC for a morning of social distance landscaping at Jericho Center. We'll be pulling weeds, trimming trees, edging, hedging, and so much more. All ages are welcome, and make sure, bring your own tools. So please register on our website to let us know that you will attend. So young adults, we're having our young adults gathering online tonight at 7 p.m. on Zoom. We do a lot of laughing, and who doesn't like a good laugh? So for more details on how to join, feel free to email me at jasonh@jerichoridge.com. Thank you to those who have given to our church. There are many ways to give. There is the give option on our website. You can text the word Jericho to 77977, or you can drop it off at Jericho Center in our secure mailbox. You can take a look at our website to find more information on the various ways you can give. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the message for today.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, thank you.
A sense of urgency. We are on a looming deadline. It's going to be a late night.
Well, can you identify with that video, at least the first part? I know I can. Hello friends, my name is Brad. I'm part of the teaching and leadership team here at Jericho Ridge. And as we stand at the end of the month of February, I'm reminded yet again by how much has changed in our lives and in our world in the last year. The level of output is up and to the right for so many of us as we juggle more and more to stay on top of more and more. I mean, complexity in the workplace as we figure things out like remote team meetings, reduced staff, new protocols. There's more difficulty with respect to childcare. Kids are at home more. You're trying to get things done you used to do while they were in school. Some of you are nurses, but you didn't sign up or go into nursing to manage or be a part of COVID wards. Some of you are retail workers, and you go into your place of employment under the complex set of conditions brought on by a global pandemic. Some of you are in sales, and your level of effort needed to make up the same amount of money has gone up and up. And even simple things in our lives take more effort. Now I have to worry about whether I'm going the right way down the aisle at the grocery store, or it's more complex to think about how to thank people or how to keep in touch with aging loved ones, or how we move into a new home when friends can't come and help you pack up your stuff. And the list of things that's changed, big and small, goes on and on. And amidst all of that, many of us are working harder than ever, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And even though we're working harder than ever, sometimes it feels like we're just barely keeping our heads above water, and it can get, frankly, very tiring. And when we're faced with more challenges, which certainly as individuals and as a church family we have been this past year, I know what my response generally is. See, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs and business people, and as challenges mounted, the response was always the same: dial up the work ethic. I have in me some good old-fashioned prairie boy Protestant work ethic, very, very deep in my bones. And so when things get harder, my immediate visceral response is, I can do this, I just need to work harder. And so I will dial up my level of output to meet any new presenting challenge. And certainly there is a time and place for that kind of response. And I've seen many of you do that and just rise to Herculean challenges over this past year. But there's also a shadow side to this response. And the danger comes when my internal messaging system begins to tell me that I have to continue output and I have to be productive in order to be valuable. That my worth is somehow connected to my work output. And I know for me, this can lead to being consumed with a bunch of shoulds and oughts, and for me to feel like I'm not doing enough even when I dial up and up the output. And if you find yourself in this situation, it's just time to acknowledge that life pre-COVID was stressful, but life during COVID under those types of conditions can be downright exhausting. But what if I told you that there was an antidote for this kind of unhealthy work-life imbalance? It's not a quick fix remedy per se, but it's a rhythm of life that, if you put it into practice, can help all of us who feel tired and worn out. This rhythm of life is an ancient one, and it's as vital for today's high-tech, high-stress world as it has ever been. See, we're in a teaching and exploration series on Sundays here at Jericho, in which we're unearthing and we're putting on the table a few pivotal spiritual practices that can help you and I establish health in all aspects of our lives. So we talked 2 weeks ago about developing a rhythm of fasting. And so if we were in person, I'd pause and I'd ask you, so how you're doing with experimenting with that, maybe during this season of Lent. But, we're not in person because of COVID. And then last week, Meg and I talked about the rhythm and the discipline that it takes to belong and lean into life in Christian community, which is harder during a season like we're in. And so today I want to introduce, or maybe reintroduce you to a rhythm of work and rest called the Sabbath. Now, Sabbath is a term which comes from an old Hebrew word, Shabbath, which means to stop or to cease or to rest. And a Sabbath is a 24-hour period in which you cease from paid and unpaid work in order to delight in God and in our relationships with others and with creation. And maybe some of you have traveled to Israel, and you'll know that this is actually still in observance today. It begins on Friday night at sundown and continues until Saturday evening. Or in our culture, Seventh-day Adventists still hold fast to the Sabbath as Saturday. And the early Christian movement in the first century picked this up, but they moved it from Saturday to Sunday because they wanted to link it in with God's act of raising Jesus from the dead and making all things new. Dallas Willard, in his book, The Great Omission, talks about how the Sabbath is perhaps one of the hardest things for us to put into practice in the modern world. It's difficult to, quote, just make space and attend to what is around you. Learn that you don't have to do to be. Accept the grace of doing nothing. Stay with it until you stop jerking and squirming, end quote. See, I find myself highly uncomfortable with and often out of practice and stumbling my way through this idea and practice of Sabbath. And yet the invitation to Sabbath rest appears in every section of the Bible. It appears 104 times in the Old Testament alone. And its origin and its practice is both easy and hard to understand and to live into. But friends, it is amazingly worthwhile to try. Because the Sabbath is about so much more than a day off. It's fundamentally about ceasing our striving and remembering again that God is in control. The Sabbath is about trust as much as it is about time. And so, just like we did last week in our discussion of community, we're going to trace the theme of Sabbath through the scriptures. We'll touch down in the life of Jesus, and we'll talk about application for you and I in our daily lives. So I invite you to join me on this journey of unlocking the power and the potential of the gift that is the Sabbath. So perhaps the most familiar occurrence of Sabbath is in the Ten Commandments, but we're going to start in the book of Genesis because we see in the creation account an important principle around rhythms of work and rest. In Genesis chapter 1, we see God is working, God is creating. And then at the start of chapter 2, the author says in Genesis 2, verse 2, on the seventh day, God finished God's work of creation. And so he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy because it was the day when he rested from all of his work of creation. So from the very start, a rhythm of working and resting is modeled for us by God, who, think about this, has all power, all knowledge, all capacity. God doesn't need to Sabbath. So Sabbath cannot be about simply unplugging so that we can recharge and get out there and get back at it again, because God really has no need for that. So what's up with God taking a quote-unquote day off to rest when God doesn't need to rest? Here's the intriguing thing to think about if you follow the plot line of Genesis 1 and 2. Immediately prior to this, humanity was created on the sixth day of creation. And so the very first thing that human beings experience is actually God at rest. This is one of the reasons why Sabbath is oriented to begin on the first day of the week. This notion that we work out of a place of restedness, not vice versa, where we somehow stumble across the finish line of a week and collapse in exhaustion. If we think about it that way, it's a reminder here for us that Sabbath rest is not something that you and I earn. It's a gift that you receive from a loving and gracious God who modeled this for us in the very act of creation. See, sometimes we think about rest as a reward for our hard work, but in the original pattern of things, humanity rested first and then began our vocational and human work out of the outflow of this day of rest with God. So our next snapshot of the Sabbath comes with the ancient people of Israel. And after they're liberated from 400 years of slavery in Egypt, they receive from God patterns of life together in the form of laws, including the 10 Commandments. And commandment number 4 is the one with actually the most commentary of any of them. Listen to how it reads in Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 and following. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. That includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, everything in them, but on the 7th day he rested. And that is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. Remember, this is written to a group of people who have just been liberated from slavery. And slaves are defined by what they produce. And so this is a group with a deeply unhealthy and a distorted relationship with work. But now they've been liberated, and there's this internal mental and emotional and spiritual work to be done to actually get them to the place where they can de-link the notion of productivity from their value or worth as a human being. To move them, God needs to move them from valuing production to valuing presence and relationship. So it's like God is saying to them, listen, I want you to live out of a place of right relationships with me. And that means you need to rest. You need to set aside time in the rhythm of each week where you deprioritize production and you practice being present, because this is going to help remind you that you are loved and that you are valuable to me, not because of what you produce, but because of who you are and whose you are. And so the Sabbath day becomes a day for worship and engagement with God in that way, because the invitation of the Sabbath is for us to be present with God and with others in our lives in rich and meaningful ways, and also present with yourself and with your needs and your limitations. And frankly, this is hard for us to do in the push and the pull of modern schedules, because many of us live and work in industries and professions where 24/7 has become the norm, where you feel like you are always on call, you're always preparing the next lesson, you're always responding to clients, you're always caring for kids. But there's actually something profound that happens to us when we begin to step into and practice Sabbath keeping. I want you to hear a story from my friend Joel in his own words. Joel's in an industry where your income is directly linked to your output. And so it's a very hard one to set any boundaries in place with respect to breaks or downtime of any kind. But several years back, Joel attempted an experiment in Sabbath keeping. And, well, I'll let him tell it in his own words.
Thanks, Brad, for inviting me to speak on this topic. I just, it brings back memories of years back when I was trying to do whatever I could to service my clients and build my business, and I was a fool, which I learned later, because I ended up working, some years I would work from the 1st of January to the end of May without a break at all, not even a day off. And by the time I got to the end of the January, I was totally fried and useless to my clients and my family and myself. And so then I would spend the next month or two recovering and realizing, that was a bad thing to do, but you're caught up in it and your clients are demanding and they expect you to respond right away. And my whole income is dependent on being helpful and assisting people and providing a service. And in the beginning, you always think, I've just got to be available 24/7, and or else I'm not going to make a good living. I'm not going to become a good agent at what I do. So several years later, after going through this season after season and burning out, I decided, I became a Christian. And at some point I thought, well, do I want to be a Christian, but not in my business? And I thought, no, I think I've got to do this all the way. And so I said, you know what? I didn't know anybody at the time in the industry who refused to work Sundays, but I thought I'm going to make a commitment here to not work Sundays and just see how the Lord honors this. See what happens. I'm going to try it out. And so I began the year and I started taking every Sunday off, and I told Sharon, my wife, that Sundays is going to be our day, family day. We're going to go to church. We're just going to enjoy the kids, and I'm going to invest in time into my family and just recover from a busy week. And so we started doing that, and lo and behold, by the end of that year, I had a very good year. In fact, I doubled my income in that year, and I thought, doubled my income by not working Sundays. I should stop working Saturdays too. But anyway, kidding aside, it became evident that God honored that, and I did get a lot of flack from the industry, because our real estate industry and the clients all expect you were available on weekends especially. And there was a lot of people saying, you're nuts, you're going to kill your business. But no, that's not what happened. God works in spite of what the world thinks. He can provide. And I've learned even since then, even occasionally I have had to work Sundays. Usually if I have to work on Sundays, it's because somebody has flown in from out of town and on a very tough situation where they can only have a weekend to look at some properties and make a decision. And so I can't tell them, no, I'm sorry, I don't work Sundays. You'll have to fly back next weekend. It's like the cow in the ditch scenario. You got to help them now. So I do that. It's very rare, but occasionally I get pressured into working on Sunday by some other client, and inevitably, whatever I was working on falls apart. And that happened to me even last weekend, where I was forced by an agent who said, we're only taking offers on Sunday. And I asked her, why don't you switch it to Mondays? It would be so much better. And she insisted, no, we have to do it Sundays. And we wrote an offer and we lost. We didn't win the bid. So long story short, I can't afford to work Sundays. And for more than one reason, financial and just my family and my commitment to being a person of faith.
Well, thanks, Joel. I appreciate you sharing your journey with us and being authentic about how you still struggle with Sabbath keeping. I find this, for me as well, this is one of the hardest 10 commandments to keep. And one of the things that struck me about Joel's story is about how practicing Sabbath actually reshapes our identity. Remembering the Sabbath, keeping it holy, actually helps us break off an idolatrous relationship with work, because the Sabbath reminds us that we are more than what we produce. I love what author and pastor Rich Villodas says in his new book, The Deeply Formed Life. Quote, Sabbath is an invitation to a life that isn't dominated or distorted by overwork. We keep Sabbath not because it makes us more productive at work, but to resist the idol of productivity. We are more than what we produce. End quote. See, the Sabbath reshapes our identity because it reminds you that you are more than your job title. But as with any good gift, we as humans have a wondrous capacity to distort and manipulate it. And we completely see this happen with the concept of Sabbath. It creeps slowly from a gift to be enjoyed through the Old Testament to a time where when we enter the period after the Old Testament closes and before the New Testament opens, the Sabbath has become a set of rigid, legalistic structures that are to be adhered to at all costs. Jewish rabbinical literature developed 39 categories of items that constituted work, and then there was a longer and longer list that grew all the time. And as new technologies got added, the legalism around Sabbath keeping grew. And so if you're a modern Jew, for example, you cannot operate an elevator or you cannot live stream a religious service on the Sabbath because that would be work. And to some of you, that kind of legalism might actually sound familiar because it might mirror your own negative experiences with the Sabbath. You might have grown up in a setting that was religious and where there were all kinds of strict rules about what could and couldn't happen on Sundays. Maybe you had to stay in your church clothes all day, or not shop on Sundays, even if your friends did or if you wanted to. And you had a lot of societal support for that because in 1906, Canada's Parliament actually passed the Lord's Day Act into law. It was pushed for by Presbyterians and Methodists who were interested in creating boundaries that could help reduce the opportunities for people to fall into sin by breaking the fourth commandment. And some of you are too young to recall this, but those laws actually held sway and stores were closed one day a week until 1985 when the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And then the law was overturned. I can remember at that time living in Ontario after that ruling, the grocery store across the street from our Christian school unfurled a large banner that said, "Now open on Sundays." And the church responded with a larger, bigger banner that said, "Been open on Sunday for years." Ah, the good old culture wars. But as with all respects of our lives, as Jesus-centered people, we want to actually look at what Christ models for us and invites us into engagement with respect to the Sabbath. And here we actually see a bit of a surprise. In reading the gospel accounts, we see that Jesus travels on the Sabbath. He heals on the Sabbath. He teaches on the Sabbath, and he eats on the Sabbath, all of which was frowned upon by the religious people and leadership of his days. And in doing this, Jesus is working to help both his disciples and his critics, and also us, to see the architecture that undergirds the Sabbath again, and dust off all of those rules and legalism on top of it. And with many things, Jesus wants to help us understand that Sabbath keeping is not about getting exact regulations right. It is about getting relationship right. So look with me at Mark chapter 2, verse 23 to 28. And in Mark chapter 2, Jesus has really been pushing the envelope. He's been healing people on the Sabbath. He's been calling and inviting outsiders to follow him and come into his inner circle and his family. He teaches about fasting. And then he and his disciples get into trouble over what appears to be a clear breaking of Sabbatarian laws. Look with me at Mark chapter 2, starting in verse 23. One Sabbath day, as Jesus was walking through some grain fields, his disciples began breaking off heads of grain to eat. But the Pharisees said to Jesus, "Look, why are they breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath?" And Jesus said to them, haven't you ever read the scriptures, what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He went into the house of God during the days when Abiathar was the high priest, and he broke the law by eating the sacred loaves of bread that only the priests are allowed to eat. And then he also gave some to his companions. And then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. See, in this text, Jesus establishes an important relationship with Sabbath. He clarifies it, he fulfills it, and he also redefines it without doing away with it. He helps us better understand who and what the Sabbath was made for. See, the legalistic impulse is to make and keep a set of rules. Well, you can eat grain, but you can't harvest grain on the Sabbath, in this example. But Jesus wants to return to the conversation about the purpose of the day of rest. He says the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people. And so we have to ask, well, what are the needs of people? What need that's shared by all of us as human beings in all time did God design this rhythm of life to meet? And the answer might likely be that laboring 6 days and not 7 meets our need for rest. We are not robots who can go and go and go and go. Pausing for a period of time each week is a gift that is designed to serve us and to bless us. And this gift is a wonderful gift and privilege. It's a benefit. It's not a legalistic set of instructions to observe, a task to just power through, or a drudgery to endure. The Sabbath really is a frame of mind and heart that we are invited to enter into. Pastor and author Tim Keller says that, quote, the purpose of Sabbath is not simply to rejuvenate yourself in order to do more production, nor is it the pursuit of pleasure. The purpose of Sabbath is to enjoy your God, life in general, what you have accomplished in the world through his help, and the freedom that you have in the gospel, the freedom from slavery to any material object or human expectation. And see, friends, this is why if we just live by a list of things to avoid doing on whatever day it makes the most sense for you to Sabbath on, you might end up missing the whole point of the Sabbath, because you're actually working quite hard to keep all of your human-made rules. And so Jesus says the Sabbath is about learning to live freely and lightly in the midst of a world that is always pressing us to produce more and to be more and to do more. So where do we go from here? Let's get practical, since this series is about rhythms of life that are really practices that we want to incorporate. What might it look like to keep the Sabbath for you? I think one aspect to keep in mind here is just the beauty of starting small. Sarah Bessey, in her Field Notes newsletter this past week, had a little piece where she said this, I like it. Try to carve out the practice of intentional rest once a week, one day, even one afternoon, when you radically care for your soul by stepping back from the expectations, external and internal. A day just to pull over to the side of the highway, go for a walk in the field that you're always driving by. You are allowed to take a day off from it all, to rest, to renew, to worship, to press pause. It is permissible to stop, to take a step off the merry-go-round of culture's expectations and determination to pretend everything's fine and we must be productive to be valuable. It is permissible to go to bed on time and sleep well, and to laugh at the days to come. It's okay to shut off the computer, turn your phone on silent, let the constant email pile up, forget your Facebook messages for a day or a week, end quote. So I love this idea of picking something, maybe it's one thing, and just starting small. Maybe for you, that's just carving out an afternoon and turning your phone off. And friends, make no mistake, this is actually quite a countercultural choice. And be warned that as you do this, you will likely feel some resistance because inside of you, maybe like inside of me, your Protestant work ethic with a healthy dose of evangelical hero complex will raise its ugly head to make you feel uncomfortable. There will come racing into your brain a whole realm of things that remain undone. I know I feel this when I plug in my phone and turn it off on Friday night. Oh, there's just one more email that I forgot to send. Oh, I forgot to do this before Sunday. And if this is you, I want you to just notice this. I want you to name it and then gently push through it. Be kind to yourself as you work your way into this practice. And likely you're going to have to do some experimenting until you find some things that work for you in your current stage of life and for your family. So I know for me, as a pastor, Sundays isn't a great day to Sabbath. So Saturdays has become that day for me. And on Saturdays, I try to slow down, not set my alarm and sleep in. I've taken up a new hobby that has surprised my wife, doing the crossword in the Globe and Mail. We go for a walk on some days. I read, sometimes you tidy up the house a bit. I go for long runs. So Saturday just feels like it has more room to breathe. And I want to say that Sabbath is going to look different in each era of your life. And that's okay. For those with little kids, it's not like you can just say, hey kids, it's my break from unpaid work begins now. Feed yourselves, little mouths. I mean, when our kids were young, it was a very difficult season to Sabbath in. And so you might have to invite others and into that and make it a family experiment or exercise together. I know Pastor Jenna and Jesse have some intentional practices around Sabbath. They set aside time for board games and for fun and for connection with friends. I know people who take a digital Sabbath for one day. And so your Sabbath practices might not look like Joel's or Meg's or mine or Jenna's, but I want to challenge you to play around with the practice a bit this week. Between now and the next time we get together, what's one step that you could take further into Sabbath rest? What's one act that you can do to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy? What's one thing you could say yes to step into the joy and delight that God is setting out for us? Author Mark Buchanan says this in his excellent book on the topic, The Rest of God. And he reminds us that Sabbath keeping is where we think with holy imagination about how the arc of our moments and hours and days intersects with eternity. Friends, we get to enter into a rest that God offers us, not just someday or when COVID lifts or when you get a week's holiday, but today, now, this week. In your everyday moments of your everyday life, would you slow down and receive the beautiful and holy gift that is the Sabbath? But you have to choose to receive it and to live into it more fully. Well, we're going to transition into a time of responding to God in song, and the team's going to lead us in a new song that's called Peace. And this song is really a prayer. It's an invitation for you and I to live more fully into the peace that God offers to each of us amidst the storms of life and the chaos of our schedules and the whirling, confusing places and thoughts that occupy our minds and our emotions. And so as we step into this time, I want you maybe just to be still and to be quiet and to be ready to receive all that God has for you. And if the peace of God is something that's new to you and you want to step into that more deeply today, I want to invite you to reach out. Take that next step with God and say yes to the peace that is being offered to you. And you can do that by reaching out to our team, emailing prayer@jerichoridge.com, or if you're watching live, you can respond on our Church Online interactive platform to the invitation that's coming up now on your screen. Because friends, there is a peace that comes and that you can know not merely from a rhythm of life that is rightly aligned, but from a heart that is fully surrendered. And so let's respond together to God in worship.
You will stay true even when the lies come. Your word remains true even when my thoughts don't line up. I will stand tall on each promise you made. Let the rest fade away. There's a peace far beyond all understanding. May it ever set my heart at ease. Dare anxiety come, I'll remember that peace is a promise you keep. Peace is a promise you keep. You will stay true even in the chaos. Your word remains truth even when my mind wreaks havoc. I will be still, for I've known all along my Jehovah Shalom. There's a peace far beyond all understanding. May it ever set my heart at ease. What anxiety fails to remember is peace is a promise you keep. Peace is a promise you keep. Peace to a restless soul. Peace when my thoughts wage war. Peace to the anxious heart. That's who you are. That's who you are. You are peace till the fear takes hold. Peace when my feeling closes. Peace when I lose control. That's who you are. That's who you are. I found peace far beyond all understanding. Let it flow when my mind's under siege. All anxiety bows in the presence of Jesus, the keeper of peace. And peace is a promise he keeps.
So, as we sing about one of the names of our Father, Jehovah Shalom, we can translate that to the Lord is peace. And an example of that is when we look in the Old Testament, we look in the book of Judges. There's a time when Israel's being absolutely oppressed by the Midianites, and they have been starved. They are all of their crops being destroyed constantly. They're reduced to hiding in caves and cowering for their lives. And at that time, God raises up a leader, someone who's going to fight for them, and he goes to someone named Gideon, and he helps them to free themselves. And at that time, Gideon erects an altar to Jehovah Shalom, and that name is something that we can call on, the name of peace of our Father. And so as we sing this next song, we can rest in that, rest in the peace of whatever is going on, whatever we're holding on to, whatever fears or anxieties that we have. We can find peace in our Jehovah Shalom.
I need now under thoughts wage war. Peace to the anxious heart. That's who you are. That's who you are. You are peace when my fear takes hold. Peace when I feel enclosed. Peace when I lose control. That's who you are. That's who you are. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still, know you are God. I will be still, know you are God.
Well, our benediction today comes from Canadian pastoral theologian and poet Carol Penner, who writes on the website Leading Worship this prayer. Lord, thank you for employment, for salaries and paychecks, for the chance to labor and do our best. Help us to remember that the work that you give us to do, Lord, is not always work that the world values or pays for. Bless our unpaid work of caregiving, whether for babies or children, adults with disabilities, or seniors who need our help. Focus our eyes, God, on the work that you value above all, loving our neighbor, caring for the lowest and the least. We ask, God, for forgiveness for the times that we have abused the gift of work, and we give ourselves all the credit, not acknowledging that we owe to you and to the efforts of others. Sometimes, God, we let work become a dictator. We let it fill the empty spaces in our lives, which should be filled with other things, and we neglect people we love because of our work. So help us, God, to find you in our work and to look for you in our work. Help us as we seek a balance of work and play. Thank you for giving us the Sabbath where we can rest, where we can pause and say thank you to the one whose work we are and the one whose work we do. Amen. Well, friends, thanks for being with us, and I invite you to see us next weekend where Kevin O'Coin will explore the spiritual practice of simplicity as we wrap up our series on rhythms of life. We'll see you then.
Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. Thank